and experience. We are your guide. Find us. Kirby4U.com. That's KIRBY, the number 4, the letter U.com. Kirby4U.com or call 702-766-9538. Again, 702-766-9538.
Live from Las Vegas, this is the Wayne Coy Show.
To the ball game. Take me out to the crowd.
Well, that's what's on everybody's mind, of course, is those peanuts and the popcorn and the Cracker Jack and all that is baseball. We might have to wait a couple of years, but it's sure looking like Las Vegas and baseball are on a head-on collision track. Alan Snell is with us, and he's from lvsportsbiz.com. Alan, welcome to the show. First of all, it is so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You've been here before.
Yes. I've been able to enjoy these studios before, so
yeah,
I'm not necessarily a rookie, as I say.
No, you slid into that chair like it was yours, so that's good. But you wrote an article that got posted and put everywhere in the last 24 hours. I think today, right?
I
or did I
posted
just
it yesterday
get to it
afternoon.
Okay,
but I got to say, on LV Sports Biz, it's been one of our most read stories in the 6 years I've been publishing the site.
Wow. Okay, and that should be noted. You are the publisher,
correct?
Editor,
pretty much everything.
Chief bottle washer. Yeah. So what's before we get into the story, what is your opinion about Las Vegas being a Major League Baseball town? Do you have an opinion?
Well, I came up through the ranks as a newspaper reporter, and I don't actually have opinions. I kind of have observations. I think Las Vegas is a big sports town now, and it is the hot market of the country. A lot of other markets have been built out. And when I say built out, and we'll probably get into this in our discussion, when I say built out, I mean, we're talking about government money has been tapped for stadiums and arenas. So for many years, for decades, Las Vegas actually did not dive into giving out money for sports stadiums and arenas for quite a long time.
Right.
And then it reached a point, well, if you're going to compete and want to be quote unquote in the major leagues, you're going to have to fork over public government money. And then you have basically the Raiders.
Yeah. $750 million.
Right. People, just something to clarify about that number is that this market is generating more than $1 billion in revenues that are coming from the hotel room fees over a 30-year repayment period. So we're actually raising well over $1 billion in order to pay the debt on the $750 million. I just want to, that's something I like to clarify.
Yeah, because otherwise, if you didn't know that, you'd be like, what the heck are those people drinking over there?
Well, you should just know how much public money you're raising.
Yeah. And that was a lot. I mean, it was a big chunk of change. And Golden Knights, I understand, got a pretty nice deal as well.
Well, the Vegas Golden Knights play at T-Mobile Arena. Mm-hmm. It's a $375 million arena that was built privately by Anschultz Entertainment Group, which is AEG, which ironically they own the LA Kings, and MGM Resorts International, the biggest hotel owner on the Strip. Bill Foley later came in and bought a 15% share of the arena, but that was done privately, and the land was valued probably in the $300 million range. So if you add the $375 million value of the construction and the $300 million plus of the land, MGM Resorts did pay to demolish some buildings at that site to shoehorn that arena in that particular location. You're talking a project of about $700 million. The Raiders Stadium was a hair under $2 billion. It should be noted that the construction budget of the Raiders Stadium came in at around $1.4 billion. So Southern Nevada contributed more than a half of the money that was used to build Raiders Stadium, Allegiant Stadium. The $600 million difference that brings it up to that $2 billion figure that you hear all the time, that was money to buy the land, literally to buy equipment for professional services, for designers. And the construction of the stadium itself was $1.4 billion, $600 million other fees. And that's why you hear this $2 billion project bill for that.
Mm-hmm. And how does that rank compared to some of the other new stadiums that have been built? Well, first of all, a lot of them private money. I mean, no public money involved whatsoever. Correct?
Well, it depends on what the market is. You can go to SoFi Stadium in LA, and that's a privately built project, but it's a whole different animal. You have a huge, gigantic piece of land in Inglewood that's being redeveloped by Kropke there, who is the owner of the Rams. But then you have a site here in Las Vegas where you have a stadium that was basically crammed into a pretty small location. That's why you have only about spaces for about 2,400 cars, for example. Completely different animal, and it varies. I mean, we'll probably get into this regarding the Oakland A's baseball park and public funding, but it is a highly volatile, controversial topic about how much government should pay some of the most affluent people in your community, which are the team owners, to build a stadium. The stadium is basically the factory for where they play. That's their business.
Sure.
And, as a reporter, I'm not a sports writer. I came up through the ranks as a government reporter, and I covered City Hall in Denver. And I was fascinated at the time that Pat Bowlen, who owned the Broncos at the time, he can go to the state legislature and just ask the state legislature, can you pass a law that would give me $265 million to build a new, basically a new Mile High Stadium?
Yeah.
And
can you pass a law to get that done?
Yeah. I mean, you have to legislate it and you have to codify it. And what's interesting is that public policy makers usually don't deal with this high profile of topics when it comes to sports stadiums, because they're dealing with sewage treatment plants and road systems and garbage pickup. And then all of a sudden you have a professional team and they want money, and you're trying to figure out how much money should go into the pot to help build the stadium, or should public money be used. I just want to point out that I've covered this topic in 5 different markets, and it's a very highly volatile, controversial subject.
Sure.
And it comes down to your government officials and your public policy makers regarding how much economic impact you think a team will provide. What's really fascinating is that you'll hear these big, broad numbers of how much money teams and events bring to a market. It should be noted that here in Las Vegas, there's already a lot of people coming here. They're already spending. So there's all kinds of controversies about the validity of these numbers that are thrown around. The issue about the numbers and the economic impact numbers is that they're very potent politically. People who want the subsidy, who want the stadium, the teams that want the public government money, they're going to want those economic numbers out there because they're used politically to justify expenditure. So
of those 5 that you mentioned, that you were I guess in market when these things were happening, like in Denver.
Well, I was reporting. I mean, I've reported this in I first reported in Denver. And then I went to South Florida, and Wayne Huizenga wanted a baseball park for the Marlins. And then you had, South Florida is a fascinating stadium situation. You have a completely new arena. You had a different arena for the hockey NHL Panthers out in suburban Fort Lauderdale. And then the Heat, they built a really fancy arena in downtown Miami. Then I moved to Seattle, and I covered the opening of what was Safeco Field, the new ballpark for the Mariners. In that particular case, again, these public funding sources are all over the place. There's no one size fits all situation, because it's based on the local politics of the market, how much juice the team has. Sometimes, what's funny about the Broncos was that they actually needed a public vote. They had a public vote to extend the Coors Field sales tax to build the football stadium for the Broncos. The Broncos had their public vote the year after they won the Super Bowl back in like the 97, 98 kind of range there. So sometimes it's just, and that's the thing which kind of, we're going to get down to the heart of the matter, is theoretically, these are public policy issues that are being discussed, but all of a sudden sports pops into the picture, and you're wearing your Raiders hat and your Raiders shirt, and you obviously have been a Raiders fan for like eons.
Yeah.
And people have emotions, and there's sports sparks this visceral kind of reaction.
Yeah, I almost didn't let you in here just because your hat is blue and orange.
Oh.
Just kidding. Is there a reason why it's not? Were you going for the Bronco colors?
Actually, blue and orange is after the New York Mets. Actually,
well,
there's actually quite a few. There's the Florida Gators.
Then you get a complete pass because I know you
New
are
York
from
Mets.
there. So if you did it because you're a Mets fan for life, then you know what? You're the same as me. You're flying your colors. There's nothing wrong with that. I was going to ask you, though, out of those 5, Alan Snell, by the way, from lvsportsbiz.com, you never saw one of those stadiums not get built.
Well, actually, Wayne Huizenga did not get his baseball.
So there was one.
Built.
Okay.
So, although the Marlins eventually did get a publicly funded a new ballpark built, but when I was there, Wayne Huizenga, in fact, he sold the team. He sold the team because he could not get public funding for a baseball park.
Mm-hmm.
That was a weird situation because that was after the Marlins won the World Series in 1997 in a very unexpected way, and
then dumped all the players.
But they dumped it because they did not get the public funding for the stadium.
Right.
Seattle, in terms of the Mariners, they did get kind of a hodgepodge of various public funding sources. The ballpark did come out higher than expected. There was a cost overrun, but in that case, the owners of the Mariners at the time did cover the cost.
Okay.
So I've also lived in Tampa. I covered the business of sports for the Tampa Tribune back in the days when they were called the Devil Rays, and the current owner, Stu Sternberg, he wants a subsidized baseball park to replace Tropicana Field in St. Petersburg. That's a case that there's a stalemate. That's a case where, very similar to Oakland, where the baseball park did not get off the ground politically. So some do, some don't. And it depends on, we were just talking before we went on air about Oakland. I mean, the Oakland City Council, these elected officials walk a very, kind of dangerous tightrope where they're, on one hand, they're dealing with, their friends and the people who are saying, don't give this free government money to a billionaire because you have all kinds of other public needs. But on the other hand, then you have all the fans who are heartbroken that the Athletics may or may not be leaving. Apparently they're leaving, but there's no, as my story went into very deep detail, and there's no rendering, there's no design architect even for a ballpark here in Las Vegas, and there's
very unusual, right? Normally you have all that ready to go.
In fact, you'd
dog and pony show.
You'd actually have like a community group that's actually lobbying for the baseball team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You live here. I mean, have you seen any local civic or business organization that has been lobbying for a Major League Baseball team?
Have not, but I did get an email about a year or so ago asking me to take a survey, and I took it.
Right, but that's the Oakland Athletics.
Yeah.
That was the Athletics sending out via, I think, the Aviators, a AAA team. They did.
Yep.
They did have a survey last year, and also, since the Oakland Athletics has said, they have said that they have cut off conversations with the city of Oakland, that kind of basically puts them in a corner now with no leverage to negotiate the deal here in Las Vegas.
The city or the A's? The A's, yeah.
The A's have told the city they've shut down negotiations with the city of Oakland. And so if you're not negotiating with anyone else in the city, and it's not Las Vegas, it's going to be Clark County and the state of Nevada. If there's no other market to play that off of, then you're kind of trapped in a corner. So, you can't, if you don't get your way here in Las Vegas, there's not another market that you can kind of play off of.
Do you think the market would rather have an expansion team that they can call their own?
I think so. I think that's the magic behind the Vegas Golden Knights. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard to compare the Golden Knights to the Raiders. The Raiders are this established, iconic brand in the NFL, very distinct kind of, even though they've had a horrible record for like 20 years now.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But back in the 70s and 80s, they were I'd say one of the top 3 or 4 franchises in the National Football League.
Yeah, you used the word juggernaut. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, they had an incredibly loyal fan base to this day. The team, is coming off a 6-11 season, but you have a very different situation. The Golden Knights were created from scratch. They were organically created, and I covered the expansion draft. In fact, it was June of 2017 inside T-Mobile Arena, and the Golden Knights literally created a team out of thin air by picking team players from other teams, and
they won right
and
away.
The Golden Knights had this miracle season. It was right after October 1st. There was this immediate emotional connection because of what this market went through with the killings on the Strip.
Yeah.
So the Golden Knights will always have a special place, but they were built organically from scratch. The Raiders come in, and if you've been to the Raiders games the last year or two, you'll notice that the Raiders games are pretty much a tourist event. I mean, they have more fans. First of all, the Raider fans who do attend are from Southern California and Northern California and some other places.
Yeah.
And the rest of and 50% of the other fans in the building are for the other team.
Right. The locals bought season tickets, and then they turn around and sell them to people.
They were basically investment
wherever.
tools.
Yeah.
They were strictly financial investments.
Mm-hmm. And that's because they have no vested interest in the team from before.
There's no emotional connection.
And they look at it as being somebody else's that came here versus, like you said, the Golden Knights. Or if they got a baseball team that was an expansion team, they'd be able to say, that's ours and nobody else's.
I will say this, that I think, in terms getting back to public policy and how you fund stadiums, theoretically, I guess it would be more moralistic to have the users of the stadium pay for the stadium. And that's what you have. You have a lot of visitors and tourists who are paying that 88 cents on the $100, which is that's the charge you get to help pay off the stadium, and that money's being collected. So people who are coming to Allegiant Stadium, who are spending, paying the room charge, staying overnight, that money is going into a gigantic pot that generates about $3.5 to $4 million, $4.5 million a month. And eventually, they'll get to the finish line in 30 years, assuming the Strip doesn't close down and the hotels don't close down like we had in COVID. But the users, the people who are attending games and events at the stadium, are helping pay off the stadium. So from a moral standpoint, I think that makes sense. The users of the public venue should be helping pay off the government, the publicly funded part of it.
Yeah, but I mean, who's making the lion's share of them? I mean, the profits are going
Well,
in.
the Raiders, obviously. The Raiders run the stadium.
Right.
They manage the stadium. They do subcontract a management company to help them manage the stadium. But the Raiders, they built the stadium and they run the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Technically speaking, on paper only, the Las Vegas Stadium Authority does own it, but it's kind of moot because the Raiders run it and they generate all the money and keep it.
So when Taylor Swift comes here, the Raiders make money.
They make money on whether it's football or non-football.
Okay. So back to baseball, John Fisher is a billionaire who could certainly afford to build this place if he wanted to.
You would think so.
Yeah. He got the gap, as one reporter said, which I just love. Johnny got the gap. Yeah.
You know what's interesting about, the modern generation of ballparks? I mean, I was kind of kidding with a friend, like even the Aviators ballpark. Have you been to the Aviators ballpark? They have to me, the team store is kind of like a mall store. It's kind of like a mall. I mean, that's how nice it is. And I was just kind of laughing that John Fisher can probably open up a little Gap retail outlet in his baseball park that he wants to build the baseball park.
Why not? I came for a baseball game. I left with some jeans. Why not? So you want to illuminate, though. There's a reason why your article, I think, connected with folks that are like-minded with me. As much as you're a journalist and you shouldn't really have an opinion one way or the other. You're just reporting the facts.
Well, journalists do a very simple thing, and that is we look at what the protocol and how things should be, and then you see what happens, and you kind of see what the difference is between the two.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that have not been happening with this Oakland Athletics quote unquote, attempt to build a ballpark in Las Vegas that's not happening here that you normally see in other typical scenarios where, if you compare the Raiders stadium process, they actually went through the process of having what the governor created was called I think it was a Las Vegas Tourism Infrastructure Committee. It's kind of this official sounding thing, but it gives you the appearance that there was due process involved to evaluate whether a stadium was needed. And guess what? Yeah, a stadium was needed.
Yes.
So then it went to the legislative, process.
Right.
Went to Carson City, and you had arguably the most powerful person in Nevada, Sheldon Adelson, the late Sheldon Adelson, who paid for all the lobbyists.
On the Raiders side, he wanted football.
He was at the time working with the Raiders to get the stadium built. And he later dropped out because of difference in internal negotiations between Adelson and the Raiders. But at the time, he did politically add his clout and his might to get that approved. And then you had a governor at the time was Brian Sandoval. Sandoval was 100% behind building the stadium and subsidizing the stadium with public money. And here's another interesting facet about this whole public subsidy thing. We live in this incredibly divided country, red versus blue. And the thing about publicly subsidizing stadiums and ballparks, they don't follow party lines. They don't follow political ideology per se, Republican and Democrat. You have some Democrats are for and against, and some Republicans are for and against. In fact, you had a Republican governor, Brian Sandoval, who politically signed the bill that created the Raiders Stadium, and then you had and then he was succeeded by a Democratic governor, Steve Sisolak, who was a big supporter and had a very close relationship with Mark Davis, which is kind of a subplot to this whole athletic situation. Because as you know, and this is not a big blockbuster, Mark Davis and the Athletics hated each other. I know Mark Davis hated the Athletics over improvements and lease issues.
Well, the A's were mad because the Raiders returned, and when they returned, they took what was at the time one of the more beautiful views you could ever have in a ballpark and completely destroyed it by erecting what Al wanted, which was luxury boxes, which is now called Mount Davis, which I think they only just now are paying off. They have like one payment left.
Right, but the point is that Steve Sisolak was very, very close to Mark Davis.
Yeah.
So if the Athletics came here, Sisolak was probably not going to bend over backwards to help the Athletics because of his friendship with Mark Davis.
Sure.
So the Athletics actually caught a big break when Lombardo won.
Yeah.
And Joe Lombardo, I think, is more of a blank slate. He seems open to conversations, and I think he's more open to it than Steve Sisolak would have been. But my point is that, subsidies and stadiums, they don't follow a political ideology.
That's a good point. Sure.
They kind of unfold based on the specific dynamic in a particular market.
Yeah. Well, I know the city of Oakland's stance publicly is we tried to work with them, and we just got to a point where we thought maybe we were going to be able to put the missing piece together, which was the gap, no pun intended, between the amount of money that was originally said that they needed to come up with for infrastructure they were asking for, and what the number is now post inflation, right? And they didn't say they wouldn't, but they were that was that loggerheads between the two of them. Then this week that was supposed to be the week that was, everything got preempted when in the middle of the night, as the A's took off for a road trip so nobody would be at the offices to have to answer questions, they said, well, we're leaving. We have a deal to buy land in Las Vegas. So what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, the site itself looks pretty good. It's kind of interesting. But again, let's look at how this unfolded regarding the site here in Las Vegas. Dave Cavell, the president, led people to believe that the Athletics were looking at 3 locations. There was Tropicana Hotel right on the Strip. There was the Festival Grounds across from the Sahara and Las Vegas Boulevard, and the Rio, right? So all of a sudden you have this location pop out of the blue. So you're wondering how much credibility does this guy have if he's leading Las Vegas to believe that he's looking at these 3 other locations, and then all of a sudden you have a site off It's the I believe it's the old Wild Wild West casino site.
Yeah.
At Tropicana and just west of the I-15
Mhm.
intersection there. And you wonder how much credibility is there if the site, wasn't even discussed. Now, from a practical standpoint, it's not a bad location. It looks like it's about a half mile west of the Golden Knights Arena, and it looks like it's about a half mile north of the Raider Stadium.
Right.
It's part of the quote unquote, strip corridor, if you will. Obviously,
Tourist corridor for sure.
yeah. So, and obviously, the state of Nevada is going to have to finish this Tropicana Avenue road work
Right.
and interchange. I actually spoke with Dave Cavill, earlier last week, and we had a good interview. And I had mentioned that he kind of said as kind of a little quip, hopefully the Tropicana Avenue work will be done by the time we show up.
Will it change the work? Is what I was thinking. Are they going to have to do things that they aren't planning
that's kind of
doing
that's
now?
kind of an interesting issue because
He mentioned like a connection between the new stadium and Park MGM.
well, it's actually kind of a valid point because obviously the road work on Tropicana was being done not with any knowledge that there could be a Major League Baseball park on the west side of Interstate 15.
Right.
So, but now they're in the middle of the project. So what do? I will say this. I mean, we have to be, again, and when you're talking about Las Vegas, you're talking about a market that is not known to have great transportation, great health. The elected officials at Clark County and even the state legislature are going to have to consider, and that is how important is public money for a baseball park when you have these other public needs that are just crying out for help.
And I think that was at least for those that were not necessarily detractors, but wanted to see a plan in Oakland. I think that was exactly the point they were making.
Right.
It's a city that needs a lot more than just a new stadium for its baseball team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you mentioned, I mean, much better than I do about the city of Oakland's, social issues and public needs.
To their credit, I think the A's have worked on this. It was just, we've kind of been through this before where we were going to Fremont and then that didn't happen. And then we're going to San Jose and the Giants wouldn't let that happen. And then they were going to Laney College, and the college, after they announced they were going there, said, no, you're not. We don't want you here. So then that went away. And somehow we ended up at Howard Terminal when truthfully, most people who live there would tell you, and I'm a Bay Area native, that the best place you could possibly be is right where you are. You've got 880 there. You've got BART there. You've got the airport there. It's from an egress point of view. You get in, you get out. And it's got tons of space. So you could actually do everything Fisher says he wants to do, build a village, all of that. So I don't know why we got away from that. They say that they had to be on the water. But last I checked, there's not a whole lot of water over there on Tropicana. So apparently it's not that important.
Well, where does John Fisher live?
He lives on the other side. He lives in the North Bay. So he's really, I mean, he's a Giants fan. His dad was very instrumental in helping to make sure the Giants didn't take off for St. Pete back in the day.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of times with owners, there's the political and business issues to deal with. But at the end of the day, it comes down to owners who are emotionally invested in the team.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm just talking from experience in Tampa, for example.
Right.
You have a baseball owner of the Rays, for example, Stu Sternberg. He lives up in Westchester County, north of New York City. And he is at loggerheads with trying to get a ballpark built down there. And then you have Jeff Vinnick, who owns the Tampa Bay Lightning. Jeff Vinnick lives in Tampa, and he is building a very big walking district, business district, medical district in and around where his team is playing at the arena there.
Yeah.
So again, it comes down to owners and whether they're emotionally invested in the
Sure.
team and in the community. And, sometimes you can kind of measure that emotional investment by how much money they're willing to personally invest in the stadium or
Right.
arena.
So that was a good question you asked. The Haas family who stepped in and bought the team from Charlie Finley, they went into the community and let everybody know that, look, we want the A's to stay here. We want to give back as much as we take. And there were educational programs. They built fields for kids to play Little League. They were very much about the neighborhood. And the team, they didn't have a problem spending what it took to put a good team on the field. 88, 89, and 90, they go to the World Series 3 years in a row. Now, they only won one. Don't want to talk about Kirk Gibson right now, but okay. But still, they were there. And they didn't have a problem paying those salaries. Then the Moneyball thing came in with Billy Beane, and that worked to whatever degree, like you said before we went on the air.
Right.
Hey, they had 20 years there where they were winning at least enough to get into the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, I think they made the playoffs 11 out of 20 years.
Right.
It's a pretty good record. I mean, they ended up, I think, always losing to the Yankees or whoever, but
Sure.
the point is they were a competitive team.
Right.
My impression is that, there was, with especially in the last 20 years, there was this kind of like underdog mentality that the Oakland A's fans really enjoyed relishing, and that even against these like big odds, the team still like would win and still would be competitive and still compete.
But none of us were happy to see Jason Giambi go play for the Yankees,
Right.
Or to see, Josh, what's that last name? Third baseman.
O'Donnelson?
Yeah, Josh Donaldson, who we loved, gone. I could go on and on and on. Every time we develop a player, Mark Canha is playing for your Mets now.
Right, but I mean, you've seen that play out in the Tampa Bay market as well.
Yeah,
I mean, they were good at it. I mean, they were able to, keep a relatively low payroll,
and they have a core. They kept their core.
Yeah,
right. I mean, is there a reason why Sean Murphy
but my
is not
point
our
is
catcher?
that there seemed to be an emotional connection between fans and the Athletics,
Yes.
and they kind of took pride in the Athletics.
You're right about that.
And maybe they were, maybe demographically, they're not like this. You're not talking about like a LA Dodgers situation or Chicago Cubs situation, but still, I mean, from what I can tell, especially since I've been kind of focusing on the story more for the news site, the fans have a very strong emotional connection, and people are really emotionally upset about potentially losing this franchise to Las Vegas,
because they, which is we, feel like we didn't do anything to cause this situation. In fact, when you put a winning team on the field and you showed you cared, we supported you. I mean, the A's drew 3 million people one year, so it's not like we can't draw. We can, if you give us a good product and you don't tell us every other sentence that you're on a parallel path and you're thinking of leaving and you're going to go here, you're going to go there, you're going to go here. I mean, it's like you've left us twisting in the wind.
I just found it kind of interesting that you had other markets who actually are pursuing Major League Baseball. I mean, you have Portland and you have Nashville and you have
both
Charlotte.
great markets. Yeah,
and there was another Salt Lake City just popped up in the past month. There's a group. There was another civic group that popped up, led by, in fact, Dale Murphy and the Millers in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And I'm kind of surprised that you have cities that actually want Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of surprised, because Oakland is geographically in the West, so, probably they'd have to stay in the West. But, you had Portland, for example.
Right. So there was talk they were going there.
Yeah.
I mean, that was happening for a while. It's just, why are they going anywhere is my point. Like Oakland should be figuring out a way to keep its team.
Right. And that gets back
and John
to
Fisher needs to do the right thing by the city. And, by the
and
fans.
it gets back to, again, the public policy issue of Oakland, this baseball franchise wanting public government money from a market that didn't really ask for them to come here.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
Yes, Las Vegas is growing and it's extremely dynamic right now on the sports scene. But, what's interesting, before the Golden Knights arrived in 2017, this was the biggest market without a major league team. Now, if there's a third major league team here, we will be the smallest market with 3 major league teams in the country.
Right.
So you went from like 0 to 3, and I think,
Will that, okay, good point you bring up. Will that cause legislators to maybe pump the brakes a little bit on this? Because
they might, they might wonder whether, the size of this market could support any 81 home games.
Yeah.
I will tell you this, that what I've seen when new ballparks are built, there's this nice honeymoon period for at least a year or two where the team's performance really doesn't dictate whether people come out. People want to see the new venue. So for a couple of years, you'll get a nice little spike in attendance in a new baseball park. In the case of the A's, though, I think you'd get sellouts when the Yankees or the Cubs or the Dodgers or the Red Sox show up. But guess what? When the Marlins or the Rays, pop into town, you wonder, how many people would show up on a Wednesday night in the middle of the week,
especially with the kind of talent, and I'm using air quotes here, we have right now. I mean, if things stay the same, you'd have 2 AAA teams playing in Las Vegas.
Well, I mean, it's kind of sad, but you do have a AAA team already here. The Aviators, which is the athletics team.
Yeah.
And the question would be, can both franchises compete? And I guess the running joke is, well, if you want to watch AAA baseball, we already have it here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but
this is my second time, by the way, going through hearing our team referred to as the Triple A's.
Yeah.
Happened in '79 before the Haas family stepped in.
Yeah, it's sad because as you know, there have been nights where the ballpark in Summerlin here does outdraw the Coliseum in Oakland, which is
Family Guy even took a little punch. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's become kind of a little pop culture kind of now.
Yeah. Well, so how's it work from here? Because you obviously know how all this works. So here's where we are. We don't have the renderings, like you said. We don't have the plan, really. We have a location that wasn't even on the radar before. How do they take all of that?
Well, right now, Dave
like
Cavell
6 weeks.
and his lobbyists, they're in Carson City. And typically what will happen is that you have a whole buffet or menu of public funding mechanisms, all kinds of taxes and fees. And what they're doing is they're measuring how politically palatable all these different fees will be. And I think they believe you can build this tax district, which is not new. I mean, it's kind of a common method to try to raise public money, and that is creating a tax district around the baseball park, and all the businesses in that tax district would, impose a fee, and money would be collected. And again, from a moral standpoint, you want the users of the venue to pay for the venue. So, that's kind of the philosophy there. I don't think they're going to generate $500 million through a tax district. So there's, maybe there'll be some tax credits. They're going to be they're going to look at, literally the menu of every conceivable type of funding mechanism and see which one will be politically most palatable. A technique that sometimes teams will do is like Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers, they got their football stadium built with public money by attaching not only the money that would be raised through a sales tax would go for the football stadium, it would also fund schools and other things. So, that's another tactic. It's
like the lottery. Right?
Basically creating a funding mechanism that would generate money for an A's baseball park. And I'm just kind of coming up with this out of thin air, like, maybe special healthcare resources or schools or whatever.
Yeah.
But they have to do it quick. Dave Cavell wants to apply to move to Las Vegas to Major League Baseball by August in order for that to be voted on by the owners this fall, in order to have a groundbreaking in 2024, to have a stadium open by 2027.
Right.
So typically, again, as a journalist, these things usually take a couple of years. That's kind of the protocol.
Mm-hmm.
You go through a due process where where the public gets to get their 2 cents in.
Everything they've done in Oakland.
And you don't really see this you don't see any of this stuff in Las Vegas. They're going to have to, speed up a process that usually takes 2 years and cram it into about 4 months.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that set me off a little bit yesterday is I'm going to back up. When Dave Cabell first came onto the scene, it was pretty refreshing. He was very well spoken. He had open office hours. You could come and literally, as a fan,
he seems like a pretty friendly, gung ho kind of guy.
yeah. But he's become the carrier of the water to the degree that when he says Major League Baseball is giving us a deadline of the beginning of the year, January of 2024, we have to have this done by January of 2020. Major League Baseball is putting a deadline on no, Major League Baseball has said, if you want to continue receiving the welfare that you're getting now, Mr. Billionaire owner, you better have a plan together by January of 2024. That's what that's about. They are getting all that revenue sharing money and they don't want to not get it. So it's going to go away if they don't have a plan.
Well, kind of something that's kind of a little quirk in this is that I believe the lease at the Coliseum expires after 2024.
It does, yeah.
So that's another issue is where would the Athletics play? Yeah, everyone's been talking about them bunking up with
the
Aviators and playing in a 10,000 seat stadium there. It's a nice baseball park. It's in suburban Summerlin.
It's beautiful.
But
they'd have to add seats, right?
Well, I don't know how much. I mean, they can probably get maybe more seats, but Don Logan, who is the president of the Aviators, has been asked multiple times about whether you can expand that venue, and you can't. I mean, based on the way it's built,
you cannot
expand it. So, maybe they can put some temporary bleachers, maybe, out in, out in the outfield or something, and maybe they can add. I'm guessing, maybe another 1,000, whatever, but it's not going to be that significant.
So I heard 8,000. There's no way. You're saying they can't add 8,000 seats to that place.
I doubt it. I don't know where you're going to be cramming that in unless you structurally build onto the venue.
You can have Mount Davis if you want. We'll loan you that. Yeah. Now I heard him say that we might have to build a new clubhouse that would maybe be across the street. So I heard him say that, and then he said the light stanchions would have to be raised.
I will say this. I mean, I'm very familiar with the site, and I mean there is space. There is some open lots, out there. Yeah. So, they could, but again, theoretically, it's a temporary stopgap for 2 years. So, how much permanent building do you want to do for something that you're just going to use for 2 years?
Sure. So then if that did happen, would the Aviators stay there, or they would go to Cashman? Or
well, I think they would just kind of share the schedule, when the Athletics are on the road, the Aviators would play. And
obviously at night, right? Because day games in July, that's not happening.
Right. I mean, that's another issue.
Mm-hmm.
Summerlin, is so Summerlin's like around has some elevation. It's around I think the elevation of the ballpark is probably around 3,100 feet, 3,200 feet. So it's about 1,000, 800 to 1,000 feet higher than the Strip.
Yeah.
So it is a little cooler. I mean, it's a little cooler. I mean, it'll be 3 to 5 degrees a little cooler, so for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But like you said, in June, July, I mean, June, third week of June, it seems like we always have our 113 degree days, here. So,
I'm sure
June,
Major
July,
League Baseball
August,
players love that.
Yeah. So, it's not a climate control. That's something which Cavill did say that the Athletics ballpark would have to be climate controlled in some way.
Like a retractable.
He's probably a
dome.
retractable or partially retractable.
Okay. So what happens now? What are we watching for? And we're obviously going to be keeping up because lvsportsbiz.com, your piece just got not just my attention, but I think you said A's fans are specifically perking up when they read what you
right
wrote.
now. It's a political public funding debate. So you're gonna see this at the state legislature in Carson City. What's interesting is the state of Nevada has a legislature that meets only once every 2 years. So
did not know that.
So you're going to have some robust debate now. I mean, Cavill said that he's been in touch with the leaders of both houses, and then you have Clark County. Clark County Clark County's the commission's a very powerful governing board here, and you have Jim Gibson, who is the chairman, and I believe the ballpark would be, in Michael Knaff's district. So He's going to play a very big role with that. So basically, it's a political issue now. And, Clark County has said that for what it's worth, they have promised that it'll be robust debate and public discussion. I haven't seen too much of it, but that's ask what's next. That's what's going to be what we're going to see. I mean, hopefully there'll be some public forums where funding sources will be discussed, and hopefully these will be robust discussions.
Knowing what you know about the market, and you know plenty, how do you think this ends?
Well, since Las Vegas is kind of a betting town, I mean, honestly, I just kind of look at it as, I wish I had kind of a crystal ball, but I kind of look at it as 50-50.
Okay.
I'm kind of, to me, it's conceivable for the Athletics to be here. But then again, we don't know how much Fisher is going to back off the $500 million ask.
Sure.
I'm guessing the $500 million ask in public dollars was kind of an opening, and it could go down to whatever, 200, 250. We don't know how low he wants to go. He's willing to go.
Yeah. Interesting that his
something to throw in is that Major League Baseball, I think, in order to approve the move, Major League Baseball will probably want to see the new local host community, Clark County, state of Nevada, cough up the public dollars in order to approve the move. That's something which Major League Baseball, the owners, for them to approve this move, they'll probably want to see some government public dollars as part of the deal.
Well, Commissioner Manfred came out and said basically he wants to see the Las Vegas thing happen because he feels like Oakland has played out its scenario and it didn't work out well. And he said, I'm sad for the
he wants
Oakland
Las Vegas
fans
to happen, but he hasn't said how much money Las Vegas has to come up with.
Right. Yeah. So that's still to be determined, right? Oh man, are you going to keep writing about it? Obviously,
that's
I want to get an alert.
When I was, when I published the story just yesterday, and I was writing it in the morning, I had started it a week earlier, and then the whole Cavill news broke, the 49 acres off Tropicana broke, and honestly,
you talked to him,
and after I spoke with him, I mean, honestly. It's one of those stories where it kind of wrote itself, because I also reached out to a lot of sports economists around the country, to get their 2 cents worth. I mean, there's about 4-5 different sources in there in the story, and they're worth, kind of digesting too, in terms of getting different perspectives on it. So, I mean, it turned out to be a 2,200 word story, which is, kind of a lengthy story for the internet these days.
Right. It was a lot of cutting and pasting for me, by the way. I had to share that thing immediately, which then I found out all I had to do was hit a button.
Yeah, there you go.
So we will obviously keep reading, and you keep writing, please, because we need to know. The fact that you got that interview with Dave Cavill, though, he's done one interview with the Bay Area sports press. One.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Yeah. I mean, he's talked a lot with the media here in Las Vegas.
Yeah. He hasn't returned my call yet. Okay. Well, Alan, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Alan Snel, lvsportsbiz.com. Worth every second of your eyeballs, whatever you can. You're looking for something good to read before you go to bed. That's a great site to dig into. Man, it's fascinating to me. And you obviously have made your whole life about this.
There's just so many different aspects to it. And, what's interesting is that, people's comments are really based on their own personal interest in it. Yeah. And as a reporter, you try to, again, look at it at, this is how things usually happen, and this is how things are happening, and you report what the difference is.
Right. I, on the other hand, can be as biased as I am. Hey, the good news is, even if it doesn't go the way I hope it goes, because I want them to stay where they are. Okay. 55 years is a long time to be vested. And I think we're very vested. So leave our team where it is. Let Las Vegas have a new team. If it doesn't work out, what's the worst that could happen is I get to go see my team play. It's like the Raiders, right?
Well, what's interesting is that Major League Baseball probably wants to expand to 32 teams. They're at 30.
Yeah. They're waiting for Oakland and Tampa to figure their stuff out.
Right? And honestly, I think the Golden Knights have their magic because they were created from scratch.
Okay.
So.
So there you go. That's as close as you're going to get to him saying, no, I'd rather have an expansion team. Alan, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah,
It was great to meet you.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm glad we got a conversation going.
Heck yeah. Please come back too. Okay?
Yeah, we'll do.
All right. There he goes. Alan Snell. Don't forget, it's right there on his hat. lvsportsbiz.com. Go see him.
Hi there, this is Kirby Schofield, Schofield Realty here in Las Vegas. Real estate is always changing. Be it a buyer's market, a seller's market. At Schofield Realty, it's your market. Buying or selling, we have the team and the tools to work the market so it works for you. We are excited that we're on the Wayne Coy Show. Our results blessed us with the Zillow Flex partnership roughly about 2 years ago due to our consistent conversion and customer service scores. With conversion, that means we can close. And with our customer service scores, you know you're going to get the best service possible. We're always looking for agents, led by mentorship, resources, and experience. We are your guide. Find us. Kirby4U.com. That's KIRBY, the number 4, the letter U.com. Kirby4U.com or call 702-766-9538. Again, 702-766-9538.
Hungry for the best barbecue in Las Vegas? Come out to the infamous barbecue and meat market, John Mole's Meats and Roadkill Grill in Las Vegas. John Mole's was featured on the Food Network's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Now take home delicious meat selections for your grill, and while you're there, grab a bite of the best barbecue in Las Vegas. With 2 locations now at Tom and Gowan or on North Decatur, you're sure to find the perfect meats for your next barbecue or party. Find us online at johnmolemeats.com.
My name is Michael Stefanski, and I am the owner and founder of Sin City Custom Suits, custom clothing concierge. I help gentlemen get into clothes that fit them like they're supposed to, that they pick out themselves, and we craft together. 600 different suit fabrics to pick from, about 40 measurements to make sure the suit's going to fit you right. Then we decide, do you want 2 buttons on the front, 3 buttons on the front, how many on the sleeve? You want like a custom photo lining for the inside of your jacket, any number of different things that you can think of. This is all about what do you want. And when you ask guys, what do you want? They don't know because they've never been given the option before. Because I help men look as absolute best as they can. It's transforming people's lives. If you've never had a suit that fits you right, you have no idea how much confidence it gives you. That's the important part. 702-767-2478. Instagram at Custom Suit Guy, SinCityCustomSuits.com.
Hey, listen to this. Share Life Vacations has a special treat for you. It's a free 3-day, 2-night getaway to either magical Orlando or exciting Las Vegas. It's your choice. Absolutely no strings attached. Share Life will also include a second vacation to your choice of over 30 additional popular resort destinations. Now, we can't give everyone a fantastic prize package like this, so to make it fair, we're going to ask you a trivia question. You get it right, you'll win it all. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. This movie is about a British Secret Service agent who is frozen in time in the 1960s. Was that movie Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery? Press 1. Diamonds Are Forever. Press 2. Lethal Weapon. Press 3. Got it? Well, then call 855-301-8586. 855-301-8586. That's 855-301-8586.
Big Dogs Brewing Company, open 24/7, is an award-winning brewer, a full-service catering business, and a fun, smoke-free brew pub restaurant with a full-service bar, including over 35 craft beers on tap, 35 multi-denomination slot machines, the best gaming promotion, and a lively, dog-friendly outdoor patio. Big Dogs Brewing Company, 4543 North Rancho Craig. Find out more at BigDogsBrews.com. World-famous radio shopping show weekday on 1400 KSHP North Las Vegas and KSHP.com.
You're listening to the Sports Byline USA Broadcast Network.
USA News, I'm Ryan Daniels. Former President Trump is reacting to the news of current President Biden kicking off his 2024 re-election campaign.
You could take the 5 worst presidents in American history and put them together, and they would not have done the damage Joe Biden has done.
Meanwhile, Trump is questioning why he should take part in the Republican primary debates. He said he likely won't get fair treatment from the anchors asking the questions anyway. President Biden is threatening to veto the House Republican bill to raise the debt ceiling. The White House called it an exercise in reckless gamesmanship. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre cited an analysis by Moody's Analytics.
The Speaker's legislation would increase the odds of a recession, cost 780,000 jobs, weaken the economy, and increase the unemployment rate.
The Speaker's plan includes pairing a package of spending cuts with a 1-year debt limit increase. House Republicans are reportedly still trying to collect the 218 votes needed to pass the Speaker's plan. The choice between Biden and Trump is neither for a large number of Americans.
A new poll is finding that a majority of Americans don't want either President Biden or former President Trump to run in 2024. The Reuters Ipsos poll found that 45% of Democrats don't want Biden to run again. That's compared to 34% of Republicans who say the same thing about Trump. Overall, the poll found that about 2/3 of all respondents don't want either to run in 2024. I'm John Schaefer.
Does a simple chord progression make an original song? Ed Sheeran maintains he did not copy Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On when creating his song Thinking Out Loud. He just used a very common chord progression within Marvin Gaye's song. That court case ongoing. This is USA News.
The inventor and CEO of MyPillow is always looking for ways to solve everyday problems. Have you ever picked up a towel set because it felt really soft in the store, but then when you go to use it, it's not very absorbent? It's basically a towel that's leaving you out to dry. That's why MyPillow has developed the MyPillow towels. Towels that work. I know, it's mind-blowing. Towels that actually dry you. The 6-piece towel set includes 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. They come in a variety of colors, and right now you can receive a 6-piece set for only $39.98 with promo code USA. Go to MyPillow.com right now and click on the radio listener special. MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty and they have a 60-day money-back guarantee. To receive this amazing offer on the 6-piece set of MyPillow towels, just go to MyPillow.com. Click on the radio listener special and enter promo code USA or call 800-951-8175. That's MyPillow.com. Promo code USA.
Is your